Hi everyone, today we have a new video review, and as you can see, this time we are going to talk about fresh release from Meng, and this is quite, I would say, special kit, because here we get the BMW R1250GS ADV bike, and this is quite famous bike in my opinion, and I would say there is a big chance that you saw this bike in real life as well, maybe even had a chance to ride it, but today you're gonna have a chance to take a look at the contents of this box, and maybe also to decide whether you would like to get this one for your collection and build it in this 1/9 scale. So again, I think it's important to underline the scale difference, because usually the Tamiya kits are coming in 1/12 scale. I'm mentioning the Tamiya kits, but it's mainly like the typical scale for the bike models. But here we get the 1/9 scale, which is way bigger than the standard size, and as you can guess, there are more features copied out of the box. And the box itself is quite huge here, so here you can see comparison with my hand. We have also nice box art and the sticker here that it's licensed BMW product. Here we continue with the look at the finished model. Obviously you are not limited with what is shown here, because this bike was also highly customizable, so that's why you can get your own configuration. By the way, there is some information about the kit. It's written that the length of the finished model will be 253 millimeters and the height will be 158 millimeters, so this is definitely not a small build, and be sure to have the space for this project. So this is a top opening box, and as you can see, this is more of a tight fitment in terms of the packaging, and we have all of the sprues sealed into plastic bags, so it's gonna take some time in order to open them one by one, but I think it's worth taking a closer look at each of those elements. And in case you forgot, I also had a chance to check the BMW R9T. So in case you've missed this video, you can find it on the same YouTube channel which you are watching at the moment. And of course you can find some other motorcycle kits in 1/12 scale, which I reviewed before, so they were also quite nice. Some of the well-known releases from Tamiya or Hasegawa or even Fujimi. So, what I'm doing right now is opening the first plastic bag with the sprue Y, and here you can see that we have a mix of various parts. I guess we'll have to check them closer just to understand what is actually supplied here. Maybe it will be possible to do it this way. So here we have the special steps or leg rests. Also we continue with the shock absorber. I guess this is the rear one, and also here we have the radiator grills. Next we continue also with the air intake. This is part for the rear wheel. And also here we have the fuel tank cap, the exhaust part, some of the control elements, and these are parts for the front fender maybe. And as you can see, the overall molding quality looks fine. This is not exactly gray plastic, I would say it's a pale gray, but it's, I would say, not something what will influence the overall experience with the kit. Now, in the meantime, I'm opening the second plastic bag, and I can say that the R9T was interesting because it was offering the metal parts. Do you remember the fuel tank was, or the fuel tank cover was actually metal in the kit, and this is definitely a good thing to have in such size, because I mean, you will not be able to replicate what is possible to achieve with the real life-sized fuel tank made out of metal. I'm just looking at the panels which are molded here on the next sprue which I will show. It's a sprue A, and as you can see, these are mainly sprues for the bike frontal section. And I'm not sure how they will be combined. Maybe these ones will be used for the seat. These ones are the front ones, and as you can see here, we have the openings for the air intakes, and this one might be exhaust part, and also here we have another top section of the air intake probably. But again, it's worth zooming in so that you can see these parts closer, so especially these separate panels which are molded here. And as you can see, the overall shaping is really good. We have some surface details in form of the recessed panel lines, so of course it will be important not to lose them, so try not to overdo the paint and primer layers, because otherwise it will be a really strange looking bike. And in 1/9 scale it will be noticeable. But also in 1/9 scale you can actually play with different materials for the scratch building, because you get the bigger sized model and you can play with a bigger thickness metal sheet, for example. In case you would like to copy something different, then you can go with this way, and even metal wire thickness will be slightly different, so this is something to remember. And if I flip over this part, so as you can see, on all necessary spots we have installation points. Some of them are quite large, by the way, here, so it's really useful because you need to have the thorough structure of those parts. Next, I've opened another plastic bag. It says the sprue Z, and here we have more of the exhaust parts. Also we have the main chassis parts, these protector bars, the rear frame. Also here we have the skid pan and the rear arm, which is molded as a single piece part, which is quite interesting because usually manufacturers are supplying it as a two-piece assembly. And let's start with it. So I will zoom in and you can see it closer here. So as I said before, usually it is coming as a several parts assembly thing, and here you get it as a one piece. Definitely it will help you to get a bit more realistic appearance, and of course it is quite important in case you would like to have it in a bare metal finish. As far as I remember, this bike was having it in a matte black, but I think it's worth experimenting with some custom options. Here we continue with this support for the rear section, and also here you have some guard bars, another one here. And also this is the steering wheel. Here we continue with the, I guess these are parts for the fuel tank, and here you can see these main bars which are protecting the opposite engine on this bike, which is quite famous for this engine actually. And next we continue with another sprue. So it's a sprue B, and here we have the rear fender. I will show it in a second. So as you can see, it is molded as a single piece part here, quite large one. This is the front fender. This is another mud guard which is placed on the rear. We also have some pre-molded GS details. We have some parts for the radiator fans. We have also here some parts for the engine. These are the covers for the clutch and brake levers. And also we have some minor parts. For example, here you can see the handlebars, which look quite good. Maybe it's something also to experiment with some aftermarket, because usually bikers are replacing it with some metal parts, but it's already your decision whether you would like to go this way. As you can see, even this large part, it looks quite nice. So if I place it like this so that you can compare it with the frontal section, I mean the front fender, you can see that both looking good. And again, I'm really glad to see one-piece elements here, not some two-piece assemblies, because this makes the overall assembly process easier and faster, and of course the final result a bit cleaner. And this is something what I was talking recently about the small scale aircraft, but I think it also applies here. Now you can see this GS details pre-molded on the rear fender. Here we continue with this radiator fans, and let's flip it over. So again, we have quite large installation points, and I think they should be enough to support all of the weight of the parts which will be connected through it. Next we continue with the sprue D. So this one is dedicated to the frontal suspension, and finally we see some of the engine and gearbox parts. So the engine should be assembled out of several parts. Again, this is the boxer engine, so that's why you have the opposite side cylinders. And also here you can see the top cover, I guess, with the BMW logo pre-molded. We also have quite nice imitation of the screws here, and also some parts for the wheels as far as I can guess. I'm not sure where this panel will go. Probably also connected with some rear suspension. And maybe it's worth zooming in and showing these main sections of this engine block. So they look quite okay, but of course it will also depend on the marking option, if we can say, or the painting option, because as far as I remember, there were some customization options available from BMW, so you can choose some of them. Again, it's recommended to get some reference material for such projects so that you can get something really close to the real subject. Here you can see also BMW logo promoted, and here we have some parts for the gearbox. And if we zoom out and flip over the sprue, you can see again the large position pins. I'm not sure if all of this stuff will be actually screwed down, because on R90 it was actually the case that most of the parts had to be screwed down. You didn't even have to use the glue, and due to the large size, the parts were assembled with help of simple screws. We will see how it goes here. For now, we have another sprue, so here we have more of the suspension parts, a lot of minor elements as far as you can see. Again, some covers for the engine. We have the rear view mirrors, we have separate brake and clutch levers. And also here we continue with some parts for minor features on the engine. I can see also some covers here. I guess they will be placed on the rear side or section of the frame. But everything looks quite nice. So here I don't have any complaints. And maybe some might say that parts are quite tiny, but actually they are not. I mean, not as tiny as they could be in a 1/12 scale. So here it's not a complaint, I would say. It's something what you can probably even handle with bare hands. And just to give you an idea of the size of the small caps, here is comparison with my fingertip. So it's not really a small part which is requiring some tweezers. Next we continue with another plastic sprue which is dedicated to the wheels. And here we have quite interesting thing, because I know that some modders who are experienced with such type of the bike models, they replace the spoke wheels with the metal wire just to get a bit more realistic appearance. But here, due to scale, I think those wires look more or less okay for out of the box build. We also have the handlebar here together with the attachments, by the way. And this one, I'm not sure what is this part. Probably the brake cylinder or the clutch cylinder. And just to give you an idea of the wheel rims, so as far as you can see, or as far as I can guess, these parts should be combined together. So each wheel will have to be assembled out of several sections, which you can see here. And of course, it gives you a chance to play with painting options, because you can paint some of these spokes with a different color, achieve a slightly different finish. And here you can see the spokes for the rear wheel. So as you can see, they're slightly deeper because this is a one-point attachment on the bike. Here you can take a closer look at the handlebar. Maybe I will close the lenses so that it won't be that bright, but you can notice what I'm talking about here. And this is the cylinder which I was talking about before. So if I flip over this plastic sprue and we zoom out a bit, now you can see this wheel rim parts from the other side, and they're also nicely detailed. I guess the small screws which are pre-molded will help you with position. And then we have the next, I would say it's interconnection between the sprues, because here we have mostly the kind of soft elements of the bike. These are actually seat parts, and as you can see, the whole seat cover should be assembled out of several sections. And this might be a bit tricky, because on the real bike it's a solid one-piece element, so there are no joints whatsoever, and you can check even the photos, and even the box art is like this. But maybe these sections are done with the marking option, the 3-color marking option which is available on this bike, so we will see it in the assembly manual. But overall they look okay. Of course, the main, I would say, thing here will be the paint finish, because it's necessary to achieve the vinyl seat cover look. And by the way, here we continue with the wheel rims, and you can see how those spokes will be combined. So we have the let's say ring sections, or the wheel rims actually themselves, which are molded as a single piece parts, and then you will be installing the spokes from different sides. And I can guess it will be a bit difficult and tedious process, because it will be important to achieve a precise fitment. as this is the most visible part of the bike, but I think it's worth it, and maybe we will see also some aftermarket. Maybe you can also try to replace the spokes with a metal wire, just not to paint them, but this is already your decision because it will be an extra work. Next we go on with the smaller sprues. So that's where it gets a bit more interesting, because we get, for example, the rubber parts, and here maybe it's worth zooming in and opening the lenses. So now you can see that these rubber parts are concerning the leg rests, for example. Here I guess these are some covers for the shock absorbers maybe, but these are vinyl parts. As you can see, they're flexible, so I'm not sure whether it's good or bad. Usually I don't like the vinyl tires, but I think for these elements it suits it. And next we continue with the exhaust and also the shock absorbers for this bike. So I guess the cartridges for the shock absorbers are molded separately, so you just insert them into the absorber bodies which we saw before, and then it will be done. Of course, it's not a workable suspension as far as I know, so in case you would need it, it will be some additional work and modification of the kit. Now I'm opening one more plastic bag. So here we actually will see the parts for the frame of the bike. So as you can see, these are separate bars. They are molded as a single piece elements, which is really great. So at least you get the right alignment between these sections, and then you just combine them together. And I don't think that the combining process will be difficult. And we also have again the attachment points here, so it's just a matter of checking the alignment overall, and you'll be good to go. The clear parts, what is quite interesting is that they are molded in this clear orange, so you don't have probably to use the clear orange color, obviously, so you just get it out of the box and you can use it straight on your model. And I think it's really decent finish, so there is nothing to complain about. Next, I'm opening one more plastic bag. Here you can see, you will see the engine and brake parts. And for the brakes, I can see we have really cool attention to small features. So these are brake calipers, to be exact. So as you can see, we have the brake calipers, which are molded as a single piece part. And if I zoom in, now you can see that we also have here all of the minor features nicely pre-molded. So again, this is one piece part, which is really great thing here. You just have to paint it and you will be done. And as far as I remember, there are no logos whatsoever on GS brake calipers, but correct me if I'm wrong. Here we also have the cylinders for the engine. I guess those are actually the end covers. Here we get some parts. I guess this probably the battery, and this one I'm not even sure where it goes. But again, the overall design looks quite logical, so I don't see any possible flaws here. And what is interesting is that the bike stand is also included. And I mean not the kickstand, but the normal rear leg bike stand. And I will show it in a second, because it was packed into a separate plastic bag. So here we have the bike stand, which is molded as a single piece part, and this actually simplifies the assembly. You just separate it, send it all of the attachment points, and you are good to go. This is the rear frame, and also again it is molded as a single piece part, so you don't have to work with the separate sections. You just install all of the parts on top or on the bottom of it, and we have some attachment points here. So it's quite a clever design, which will come handy in overall progress. But that's not all. Again, we are returning to the clear parts. So for the clear parts, we have this clear red as well. So in case you were wondering why there is only orange, so now you can understand why. Next, I need my debonder, because we have the plastic bags which are actually closed with the staples. So I'm going to carefully remove them. So far, what we see out of the box, I would say that's a typical Meng quality. There is no surprise, but it's in a good sense, let's say. So you can get a really nice kit. But what I'm opening now is the engine parts, and I'm not sure why they're molded as or packed as separate elements. So here we have a really cool fuel tank cover. As you can see, it's a glossy finish, it's really smooth. We have the GS logo pre-molded. Maybe what I will do is actually zoom in even closer so that you can see this part better. And now you can see this glossy finish, by the way. So basically it is polished as it should be, so you don't have to do anything additionally. And again, inside we have these installation slots. So next we continue with one more cover here. So again, the same finish as we saw before. Okay, next here another polished cover. This is the inside section of the fuel tank cover. So as you can see, again polished, it has quite nice reflections. So I'm not sure you have to do anything additionally here. Another part, another cover which is polished up to the gloss. And two more covers for the rear section. As you can see, they're also nicely polished, and they will be installed from both sides, obviously, but of course we will check it once we will be going through the assembly manual. What is interesting is this Boxer engine, so it kind of mimics what we saw on R9T, but as far as I remember, this one is a bit bigger, I mean on this bike. And as you can see, the whole cover is molded as a single piece part. We have this cooling fins, and overall it looks really good, so definitely worth investing time and trying to get some more realistic appearance with metal paints, with some washes, maybe with some weathering, in case you will be replicating the used bike, obviously. In case you are building the brand new bike, the weathering will look strange in my opinion. Next we have the clear part. So it was packed into a separate plastic bag, and why I'm mentioning it, because we also get it in this special film. As you can see here, we have the windscreen, we also have some parts for the headlamps, and we have the matte clear plastic for some other elements. I think these are also for the headlamps. So I'm not sure of one thing, whether we get the masks for the clear parts, so it will be interesting to see. As for the tires, of course it's vinyl tires, so here you can see them. I will just zoom out so that you can see all of this stuff. There are different widths, so obviously the rear one is a bit wider. We also have the metal springs for the suspension, you can see them here. We have the screwdriver prepackaged here, and of course we have some of the rubber or vinyl length of the cable, which will be used in order to replicate the brake lines and other stuff on the bike, which is really noticeable, so that's why it will be replicated like this. But this is not all. We also have this clear plastic bag with assembly manual and some history note, and it is sealed, so I'm going to cut through it and we will take a closer look together. So assembly manual is not that huge, so I wonder what are other books dedicated to. Maybe some background information, maybe something else, maybe decals. So just give me a moment. Okay, so let's start with the metal here. So for the metal we have a lot of screws. As you can see, these are tiny parts, and I guess a lot of parts will be actually assembled with help of screws. And that's not all, because we also get this large metal plate. I wouldn't call it PE plate, but obviously it is made with the photo etch technology, but it's quite thick and quite tough, I would say, heavy. So here we have these brake discs for the rear and front, which is really cool, and I think this one will be for the clutch maybe, so correct me if I'm wrong. And the brake discs, as you might have noticed, were perforated, which is also quite cool. Next we have the plastic bag with decals. So again, I'm going to use the debonder in order to open the staples and show you what is inside. I wonder if decals are printed by cartograph, because usually the work coming from this Italian company, so let's see what will be on this one. But I can already see some chrome stickers for the rear view mirrors, and also some chrome stickers for the logos of the manufacturer. So just give me a moment. I'm trying to remove all of the decals here. So first of all, let's start with the small ones. We have the BMW sign and also this chrome sticker for the rear view mirror. I think they are quite standard, so there is nothing to complain about. And next we continue with the decals. So on the decals I don't see any mention where they were printed, but we have the metal finish, as you can see on these wines. So I guess there will be two editions of this GS bike, maybe even three, but overall it looks quite decent. And of course I think we will see some aftermarket as well, so that you can add even more details. Now what I'm trying to check is why this okay, I will show it to you. So this brochure, it's printed not on the paper. I would say it is printed on somewhat similar on to plastic. So as you can see, it's quite thick and also has this special smooth texture. But we also have the history note here in several languages, and I wonder why it is done like this. We have also these punch holes on the top, so maybe you can connect it. Maybe it was supposed to mimic something like a legend for the rally bikes, for example, but I don't know. But we continue with assembly manual, and here starts the interesting part, I would say, is to actually understand how these parts are going together. So let's start. The brochure itself, as I said, is not that huge. We are met first with some assembly advices and safety advices and also recommended tools. So assembly process starts with the front suspension assembly. So yeah, I completely forgot that BMW bikes have this slightly different type of the front suspension, so that's why we had this weird arm here, which is combined together with the shock absorber. Next, we continue with the engine assembly. So as you can see, that's the main block. As we guessed it rightly, that was the oil filter. And then you start combining everything together, the front cover, the rear cover, then you install more parts onto the main part and you combine it together with the frontal suspension, which is quite surprising. Next we continue with the wheels assembly. So here, by the way, you can see how they will be combined. So you take two separate wheel rims, you place the spoke part in between, and then you continue with more parts being added here and there, and of course you add the tire and the brake discs. Next, we continue with the front fork assembly. So here is exactly what I was talking about. We have this separate cartridges which are inserted into this body, and we have the lower section molded separately as well, and it actually gives you a chance to paint them properly without any masking involved, which is quite cool. And of course, as you remember, we had this orange part separately. Next, we continue with the front mudguard assembly, which is installed right into this fork. Then we connect it with the front wheel and we installed some brake line hose, and then we connect it together with the previously assembled engine and suspension. But that's not all. Here we start working on the rear swing arm assembly, and this is actually the swing arm. So I wonder why I was telling you that this part was actually the front. It was the rear. I mean, it wasn't rear, it was front, and this one is rear. So here we continue with more parts. We install the brake rotors again, and we start assembling the rear shock as well, and design kind of mimics what we saw on the frontal section. So again, it gets connected to the frontal subassembly, and finally we start working on the frame. So frame, quite interestingly, gets assembled from each side, and then you just connect those sides together. And this is not something what I expected, to be honest. But here we continue with more parts being installed. So those are actually the screws, as you can see, which are connecting the frame together. You're not gluing it, you're actually screwing it down. And then we start working with the headlight assembly. This is something also quite special on this bike due to its look and appearance. So check your references and try to copy it as much as you can. Then we continue with the steering stem and instrument cluster assembly. The rear wheel gets assembled here and installed onto the rear arm, and then we start working on the radiator. So radiator is also combined out of several parts, but this is actually handy because you paint them exactly as you see here. These are actually 2 plastic parts and this one is metal. Then we also install the engine cylinder assembly. So as you can see, it's a matter of combining 3 parts, but here you combine also 3 parts in order to get one. And the same goes from another side. Then we continue with the rear wheel cover. And here you can see the attaching tail lights, attaching rear frame to the previous sub-assembly. And then we continue with the exhaust pipe assembly. So for the exhaust, I think that's also where you can play a bit, because obviously a lot of owners are installing the aftermarket, and if you're trying to copy something specific, then it's time for some scratch building. But even this stock exhaust, in my opinion, looks quite fine, so there is nothing to complain about. Next, we continue with the engine guard and center stand. So this is quite self-explanatory in my opinion, and I don't think you will find some special surprises here, but maybe it's worth investing your time into painting it properly, because it usually has this distinctive metal shine to it. Next we continue with the head handlebar assembly, as it's written here, but I'm just looking at the mirrors, that's why I was a bit confused. We also installed this intake chamber, so that's what for this part was. And also do not forget about the lines attachment. So as you can see, we get exact measurements, so you get to connect all of this stuff together. Then we attach the fuel tank onto the chassis. So here you actually use these glossy panels which we saw before. Then we start doing the fairing assembly. This one is for the frontal section, so it wasn't actually the rear sections which were glossy, it's the frontal section which is getting installed from both sides and combined with a clear part, which should be painted in any clear color you would prefer, because as far as I remember, a lot of bikers are actually modifying it to their taste. Next we continue with the fuel tank attachment. So here you install these glossy colors, and then we continue with the windscreen. Then we install the center stand. Here we continue with the license plate mount and also the rear cover assembly. Here we install the footrests, and then we have the luggage grid. I thought it's not included into this kit, that's why I'm a bit surprised. But as you can see here, we continue with the safety bars from both sides. They protect this opposite engine banks from both sides. So this is quite important feature, which is usually seen on GS bikes. Next we continue with the seat installation. So again, as you can see, seat is a multi-part assembly affair, so be sure to check your references on how it should look like, just to achieve a bit more convincing finish. We have the luggage here assembly, and I wasn't expecting to see it in the standard package, so it is quite interesting because the luggage was mentioned as a separate set from Meng. You can buy it as an accessory set, maybe it's some resin set, but here you get to assemble it out of plastic. So that's why I'm not sure what is the value then of the separate accessory set, but as you can see, all of these items are included, and then you get them installed onto the rear section. Then we continue with the parts map, and that's 58 steps to perform, by the way. So the parts map is here. And then we have the marking options. So those are different configs of this bike, and I think you will definitely find something interesting. I like, for example, this one, and we have all of the necessary decals for this, of course, and here is one more. So 5 of them in total, and I think maybe you can use the configurator to try to choose something different, or maybe use some sales board where guys will be selling their bikes. But this kit is already available, so it's the final shape of this release, and you'll get exactly the same stuff as what you saw in this video. In my opinion, this is a really sophisticated kit, so this is something what I would rather recommend to experienced modders. But from another side, I am slightly confused on the timing of this release, because now we have the new GS model, which is completely different in looks, and even though this one, R1250, is somewhat classic among bikers, I would say some modders would demand a chance to build a new modification, not the old one. Of course, I will be happy to hear your opinion, so do not forget to write it here in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video review as usual. Thank you for joining me today, and bye.